Hey guys, it's Olivie Blake, and this is me not writing. Okay, so it's my birthday today when this arrives on the YouTube. It's no longer going to be my birthday, but on the plus side, you can find my book, One for My Enemy, now available. I'm sure there will be links down there. So yeah, super excited about it. I'm not going to talk too much about it today because I am going to wait until I actually have the book in front of me so I can maybe read you a little bit more. That'll be next week, so if any of you read it before then and have any scenes you'd like me to read out loud, let me know. What was I saying? Oh yes, so it's my birthday. There's not much to say there except that I am now older, as are we all. It's also, there's a rainstorm. It's thundering, which it does not do here typically, so that's a fun plus. Maybe Zeus is also celebrating my birthday. Okay, well, I've got coffee this morning. I'm going to get my new tattoo later today, so you guys can see what that is next week. I'm curious about what fictional story or book has your favorite opening sentence and what that sentence might be. I thought about this question for months. I've had it for a long time, and I really don't have a very good answer. I don't know that I have a favorite opening. I do have a favorite kind of opening, I guess. I do like when books kind of orient you to what's going on and then move on very quickly. So like in My Brilliant Friend, it starts in the present time and then she jumps to her past, to her childhood. In A Darker Shade of Magic, how it starts introducing the world, if it's a very like creative thing that's happening, that opening was really cool, but that's also just because the world was really cool, the way it was built was cool. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I do like to jump in with very little information and just kind of go with it. Truth Witch by Susan Dennard does a good job of that. What am I missing? The Immortalist has an interesting opening like that. Her Fearful Symmetry, which is a book you guys know that I love, does something also very similar. I basically like when there's just one scene to hook me and then it explains itself later, which you can probably tell by the way my books are, because that's kind of how they are structured as well. There's a lot of sort of going back to fill in the blanks, and I like that. I know some people like to have more of an idea where they are when a story starts, but for me, I like to give you just as much as you need to know, and then slowly fill that in as we go. I guess my reading and writing tastes are the same that way. Hello, Olivie, I am back. Yes! My seasonal feeling situation is literally killing me. Okay, so someone's got this issue where they have feelings for someone that they should not, and this seems to happen cyclically. So, do you have any advice on how to make these feelings go away forever? Boy is objectively not good for me because he makes all my insecurities bubble up in one place. I would very much like for this to stop, capitalize, so I can work on myself in peace. Okay, well, so first things first, I'm pretty sure that everybody has a cyclical love interest where it's like you struggle to get over them and then you like manage it for a while and then they pop back up in your life again. I certainly had one in college. His name has shown up in my work many times. So we're friends now. I'm going to kind of tell this story half backwards because what I want to say is everyone has this cyclical love interest, right? And usually, like, when you get enough distance from it, you look at them objectively and you're like, what is this? Like, what happened here? And I think what it is that they satisfy some weird need that you have that you can kind of only see in retrospect. So with him, like, we're friends now, so now when I hang out with him, I remember, like, oh, we were both really ambitious, and we were in college when a lot of the people around us weren't as ambitious as we were. They weren't as focused or as, like, driven, and so I recognized something in you and was attracted to it. And now that we are older and we're past this, I can see why I liked you. So that's always a comforting thing to realize, like, okay, first of all, it's not based on nothing. I mean, it might just be a chemical reaction, but that's not nothing. There is definitely something about this person that you are attracted to, but I think the reason that it comes and goes is because you recognize overall this is not the right person, but I think they bring out something in you that you don't really notice. So you say this guy brings out your insecurities, but maybe the reason you get attracted to him in the first place is because you are in an insecure place. If we could treat this like an experiment, and this is to everyone who has this problem, because I really do think this is like a common problem. Try to figure out what else is going on in your life every time your attraction to him resurfaces. Because I think what it probably is he's providing you with something. So I think what this guy was providing me with is there was definitely a point in college where I was questioning what I had majored in and what I was doing next. And it seemed like every time I was questioning what I was doing next, I was less able, because he was around me all the time. He was always there, but then sometimes my need to be close to him was stronger at certain points than others. And I think it had to do with the fact that he was providing me with something to drive towards. So I don't know what that is for you. I think you might be at like a needy point in your life that might be unrelated to him. And the only way you can really figure that out is to figure out what your mental state is now, minus him, what you're up to in your life, what the context of your life is, and what happened the last time, what was going on the last time this happened. And the time before that, however many times this has happened. Because I really do think that if you can recognize this isn't the right person for you, then the problem is not so much him, but what you need from him. Or what your search for him, or why is the word hunt? Not the word hunt. Your pursuit of him is fulfilling a need. I know that sounds weird, but the fact that you want him means more about you right now than it does about him. I've also said before to write down a list of things you want from your love interest, from your significant other, whatever. The bare minimum stuff. So I know I've said this before and I'm repeating it, but make a list of 10 things you absolutely must have. This I say all the time. This is related to this, but it's also related to everything. Make a list of 10 things you must have in a partner, and the kind of thing where, like, if they didn't do one of these 10 things, you could not consider them. And reread this list to yourself. I swear to you every day, whether you have met someone or not, just keep reading it to yourself, because that is sane you's reminder to potentially later crazy you what it is you're actually looking for. This is just in general relationship advice, because it's very easy to get caught up in biology. So to remember what you're actually looking for and what you actually deserve. Your friends are not going to be able to remind you of this, because when you really fall for someone, the way I did for this guy, it didn't matter how many of my friends told me he wasn't good for me. I wasn't going to listen, and neither are you. This list might help you, though. It did help me. But anyway, forgive yourself for this, okay? Forgive yourself for your weird attraction that you know is bad, because it's okay. You're attracted to something that is definitely real about him. Whether that is physical or if that's something that he gives you. Maybe you just like flirting with him because maybe flirting with him brings you something. A relief. He is bringing something to your life. And if it's not actually him, then you need to figure out what it is. Because that way, also, like, the more self-aware you are about, well, yourself and how you're feeling about him, the easier it's going to be to sort of extract real him from the him in your mind, the him that you're attracted to. So like I said, with this guy from college, I really did like his brain a lot. And I found him and his thoughts and his, I swear, his attention to detail. It was this whole thing. I don't know why that I was just so attracted to that. but that genuinely did arouse me, and that is what I wanted from him. But kind of knowing that about him and finding that in someone else and realizing it's not just this one guy, it's just this quality that he has, is something that can help you move forward. You can't make the feelings go away, but recognizing what the feelings are actually for can really change things. Is it for this guy? Is it what he represents physically? Is it what he represents emotionally? Is it his role? Does he like work with you or something? Just figuring out what it is, forgiving yourself for whatever that is, because it might be weird, but that's still something to know about yourself. That can help you moving forward, I think. But definitely, if you're worried about wasting your time on him, then definitely write that list and check it. Check it seriously every day, just to remind yourself why he's not what you're looking for. Okay, I'm prepping to write an ensemble fic, and I was wondering if you had any advice for writing multiple characters with varying points of view. Okay, so for me, characterization is paramount. The stronger, and when I say characterization, I mean, have you built the character to have the thoughts and motivations of a real person? Sometimes I have problems with this in weird ways. Like, for example, the main character of the Grisha trilogy is this girl who was an orphan, right? And for some reason, she had this extreme need to do good. She had this very, like, black and white view of morality that for me never really made sense. Like, it makes sense for a character like Harry Potter, who kind of mythologizes his parents and his background and their whole fight with good and evil, and it makes sense for him to have certain views on like how the world should work. His psychology checks out. But I've always felt that the main character of the Grisha trilogy just didn't make any sense. Like, this is a person who didn't have any, like, there was no reason for her to feel that way. And it always bothered me, because then every decision she made and every romantic choice she made, I was like, why this? Why is this happening? This doesn't make any sense to me. So that's what I mean by characterization is, does the character you've created, do they make sense? And is it consistent? So, are their decisions consistent? Do the things they like, are they consistent? If they feel this way about one thing, does it make sense that they feel this way about another thing? For me, a lot of my characterization is rooted in psychology, and I think a lot about that. About what it means if someone is an only child versus if they have siblings, what drives them if their parents were a certain way, what their relationship is to the world around them. So that's true of every story. Of everything you write, I think it's best to understand the minds of your characters. As for doing an ensemble fic specifically, or any ensemble story, you really have to know all of your characters, and they have to have fully fleshed out backstories. Even if you don't put their entire backstory in the book or the fic, you need to know what it is, so it makes sense and it's consistent why they make the decisions they do. Basically, I mean, the important thing with an ensemble story is making the audience care equally about each character, right? Even if one character is more morally gray or whatever, and the other thing is, people are always going to like one character more than the other. That's just how things go. As long as they all make sense, that's what's important. But really, the thing with an ensemble cast is deciding whose point of view you're going to exist in at any given event. Definitely think of your ensemble cast as if you're actually inhabiting each one every time you write a scene. Their internal narrative will probably sound a little bit different. They probably don't all have the same thoughts. That's all dependent on your writing style. But I say a lot of times that I like meditate a story beforehand or meditate a scene. And what I mean is I'm putting myself in that character's point of view. What are they thinking about when they're going through this, based on their history, their background, their interests, whatever crises they're facing at the time, their age, their gender? All of this factors into their perception of the world. And I can't really tell you how to do that, But it's definitely something you learn kind of as you go. I mean, I guess to practice, you might just want to start writing practice passages from each character's point of view to see how it feels to be inside their heads. Pacing is always really important, so anytime there's an important event, you probably want to know ahead of time who is the character who is expressing to the audience what's happening. Sometimes you want to consider this with, like, maybe you want to enter with the character who is least familiar with the world so that they can explain more things to the audience, because they're going to be the ones who have questions, versus the characters who are already well-versed are the ones who are going, like with the Commoner's Guide, for example, my story, Hermione is the main narrator because she's the one who's newest to everything. If I were to open with one of the other characters who have already existed in this world for 21 years, the audience would never get their questions answered. They wouldn't see it from the point of view of someone who is just coming into it, which they are. So yeah, I guess there's kind of multiple layers to storytelling in general. That's what is the character experiencing, and also what is the audience experiencing. And you kind of have to tailor the character's experience to inform what the audience is seeing. With writing anything, there's how does the character feel about this, and then what is the audience going to think once they have seen what this character thinks about it. I know it's kind of abstract. There's just that extra layer of you are the author writing for an audience, but you can only inhabit your character. So you can only show certain information or certain reactions in order to play with the audience's view of what's happening. And that can be especially difficult with ensemble stories, but it can also be more fun because then you can switch perspectives to somebody else and show what they think about it, and it feels like almost a completely other story because you've inhabited somebody else's thoughts. And that's also how you can make them more or less sympathetic to the audience as well, is does their internal narrative follow? Does it make sense? And also, is it relatable? But yeah, as with anything, you just try it. Practice is how you figure out how to do it. And the more times you write an ensemble, the more sense it starts to make. Well, I've got to go. But I hope this was helpful. One from My Enemy is now available on Amazon. The link will be down there in the box. This has been me, Olivie Blake, not writing, and I'll see you next week.